So this classification system, just a few words, very, very fast. It consisted in classes, climate classes, tropical, arid, temperate, etc. So even the polar is not interesting for agriculture, but okay, for completeness. And here, added to that, are the climate zones within the one used. Yeah. So there is material, my impression at least, and there is some critics on this system, but okay, gives me farewell an impression of where our planet is today. Now, the system itself, the name is not on there, Köppen-Geiger, is an old system from the beginning of the past century. However, that convinced me to get in the track, that it has been updated with satellite data. So this gives me confidence to make use of that. Yeah. Next one. So here are descriptions. So the classes, the zones actually, there are three letters, but what is important, they have threshold values for temperature and for precipitation. So now the discussion will be, when I speak about the new project, will be on the threshold. Are they still valid, at least for certain regions, as the Sahara? So this to indicate that it is a serious basic material to work with. Distribution of the climate classes per continent. So let's look at the last line, so the planet. And above are the 5 climate classes in percentage of surface. And then we see that, in fact, the class B, which is dry, this word, is about 30% of our planet today. And then comes the second one, is D, is the continental. Yeah? So when I look at Europe, which is not the case here, then we are in that zone, is the second one. The last one, the third important one is the tropical, which I would think it's much larger, but it's only it goes 90%. This is the situation of today. Again, why I say that will be clear later. Second part, so climate classification, demography. These are data and curves from 1950 to 2300. These are data from the United Nations. Yeah, so I can discuss them. There are other discussions now, but anyway. So there it does other discussion at the past 2000, why not we say, or the amount of that. Some say that also in the whole, in 2050 will be the maximum, so others say not. But I think it's not so important, at least not for this discussion. That is this curve, this is for Asia, okay? I have some numbers afterwards. This is Africa, and that's the most important part. That Africa is growing in a terrible pace, which is an enormous problem. And so for modesty, Europe is declining. So as Japan, so in population. So I think I have now some numbers. Yes, here. This is the growth table. And what is important, so they come out from the book. So this is right here. The ratio 2000, 2100, according to the data of the UN from that time, that there will be a pace of 2.83. This is enormous, to my understanding. And so compared to others, Asia still is modest, but Asia is a large population. So the effect, one should always talk with two numbers anyway. So in the end, here for this presentation, the world is ratio from 2000 to 2100, yeah, and here is 2010, but 2000 will be a factor, according to this data, of 1.5. But Africa is in there the major problem, to my understanding. Okay. So, now the third element, first climate classification, demography, is the networking. That was the, for me, the entry point in this type of research. You know, the science of network is coming up since, let's say, 20 years or something, of 25, and generally associated with complexity. But I didn't consider complexity. I would say this is further research to do for food production, anyway, for other topics. So here, just to comment, the squares are the continents, yeah? And then the other, the AF, are the green ones, the light blues, are the climate zones. And in this case, I took here for meat, for poultry. Now I have to make a parenthesis. So I said which data are considered. Crops, and there are 3, and so I came here to see it, is wheat, maize, and rice, planetary. From data from the FAO, from a fantastic book from 2013, with an enormous collection of data. Okay, so then meat. Meat are 4, they're beef, pork, sheep, and poultry. And so and here, poultry is the most general meat on the planet. Okay, and so this is then used with the software, so what I knew about, Gephi. Gephi is an open source software for this, not designing the networks, but evaluating networks. And the data are available, are prepared into Excel tables, so which is very convenient and directly available. And that's the presentation only for poultry. Yeah, that's the picture. So you see there is here that in this picture, what is called 280 nodes, which are the essential elements, and the connections to the nodes are then what is called the edges or the links. There are 500, so a fact about twice. So the picture here, or the others are similar to this here, and there are several in the book taken and presented. So it is not complex at this stage. Now there is one critic. It is the picture of today, or the today of the date of the data. There is no extrapolation, and that is a critic. But I come back to that later on. Good. This is another picture for the Mediterranean, which is quite much simpler. And so there, the Mediterranean, by the way, there are 3 continents. There are there, Europe, Asia, and Africa. And so with the climate zones in the other colors. Just to give an impression of what the Mediterranean can be that way. Now, I make a parenthesis of a project I'm working on, which is on the Sahara. And it started with the Mediterranean, in a discussion with colleagues, to say, oh, well, you know, the Mediterranean will be very interesting. And I think it is still, yeah, but maybe less interest for you, but nevertheless, okay. So I limited to what the Sahara is. And this is a picture coming from a publication, the size and the countries of the Sahara. Why is it interesting? And it is interesting. And this is a picture from a new publication from this year, published in May 2018, done by a group of people, or colleagues, at the University of Maryland. And they undertook the structure or the behavior of the desert over about 1 century, yeah, here, up to 2013, where they added their data. And for summer and winter, how is the Sahara today behaving? Their conclusion is it is very sophisticated. I have the publication with me. It is very mathematical analysis, it is not simple descriptive, far from. What is important is that their correlation they found of the expansion, which is mentioned over there, yeah, and that's the time here. Their expansion seems to be a linear one, which is that linear curve, okay? For the winter and also for the summer. And then there is another correlation in a shorter period of time from 1940, 43, I think, up to now, which is also appeared to be a linear correlation. This, I must say, has surprised me, and so I found that absolutely fantastic to have a quantified behavior, or at least a work done that comes to that conclusion. Now there are two elements to discuss. Will the future be linear, or will it become, or is it going on a non-linear behavior? In another presentation last Monday, actually here in Mexico City, he said, well, so I have an impression, it's not rational. When we look at what's happening on the Antarctic, so the degradation of the melting of the snow and ice, it is certainly not linear what's happening there. Yeah. So if we take that as analogy, which is very dangerous, by the way, but nevertheless, so let me say, I would expect that in 100 or 200 years further, that the way that we behave now in society, for what concerning global warming or climate change, that it could become non-linear, which is not here. So I made the extrapolation. So, and I said, did I mention that the result is that for 1 century, the Sahara has grown by 10%. Yeah? So I made linear extrapolation for 2 other centuries, so come to frightening conclusions about the size and the migration north and south of the Sahara in that region of the world. Now, just for your information, for those who wouldn't know it, the Sahara today is 30% of the African country. Yeah, without the islands, 30%. Today, when added the Sahel, south of Sahara, it is 40%. If that in another 100 years, again at 10%, etc., and even faster. So, okay, I don't feel very optimistic. And one of the conclusions will be of the study is that for that region, and as I admit, I look at it as a European. So you certainly, you know that we have a problem of migration. We have a problem of migration of the Northern Africa from there. So that migration will go on. It's unavoidable. Yeah? So there are the 3 reasons together, the size of the Sahara, the climate change, and the plants, the effects on the plant, on the production of food. Plus, I forgot one, the demography. Yeah? In that part of the world, Africa was 2.83. So let's assume that only there, in northern Africa, it's a factor 2. Then we get up there to 500 million people. So it is, so my conclusion is, or hypothesis is, migration is unavoidable, but to add, and that comes from recent publications, migration means intercontinental, that's what we are living, and we are dealing badly with, yeah. But there is also intracontinental. That's happening in Africa, apparently, but maybe on this continent, or the continent of South Africa, Southern Africa, America, that could happen as well. So migration is going to be, to my view, but okay, so you can criticize that. It is an element of the future of mankind. Okay, so that's part of the project I'm doing now, and I hope to have a publication by the end of the year. Here I mentioned other deserts of the world, so it is impressive what's going on. Maybe here in Mexico as well as, or in Latin America at large. Here I said, well, a few comments. This is the climate change, the Köppen Gaia, or the GEFI application, where the Sahara is right, yeah, and the 6 climate zones with, I don't know, remember, it's not mentioned here, but with food elements, it's not in the eyes in the text, sorry for that. So with the climate change, I do the following thing, that is that climate, so remember that the classification is temperature dependent and precipitation dependent, that in a certain time, 50 years, 75 years, there are from the 6 starting, remaining 4, not more. And there are 2 are vanishing with very little population. Yeah? And that's not the end of the story. The next one is, if climate change, if global warming is increasing, if the precipitation in that area is going down further, in fact, it could that that region ends up only between climate change related to the desert, and the one is the CSA is the zone related to or bordering with the Mediterranean. So the Mediterranean climate has an effect on the climate of these zones. Yeah. This here is a picture we do not have for the planet. So this is further research for all who want. Yeah. So to add to that is that what is missing. What is missing is we can do extrapolations, as I said, the linear extrapolations in function of the climate change. Okay. But I'm looking for, maybe you have data here, what will be the agriculture in 100 years? Yeah, so the extrapolation of 100 years. What will be there? Will there be dramatic changes in cultures in local places? So I don't know, maybe not. It could be that rice, or there's something other rice type that comes up and replaces, or whatever. So what I'm just generally saying that data or the projection of agriculture elements is not available as far as I know. Okay, good. I don't know, how far is the time? I have here now. So, I come back to my book, so, or not. So that's, desertification is a linear extrapolation. So as I said, etc., with the number of kilometers, square kilometers, etc. Decrease of precipitation. Yeah, we speak about today of 100 millimeter per year is a threshold, and that is decreasing. So can we imagine there a population of today of 250 million people? And so, okay. climatological, and above all, the quantitative analysis, what I have said, it calls for intervention and technology for reducing the pace of desertification, which is easy to say, but I give some ideas after. Migration, I've told that, unavoidable, so, okay. You have not to share that, but whatever. So then a number in the book, I do a number of recommendations. Not to have the critic that, so there's a scientist, etc. Now, these are 9 recommendations as such. They come from the agriculture publications. So I will appreciate having comment and help there. There could be much more going on, or possible, so which has then to be installed in Africa, in South Asia. Okay, reduction of greenhouse gases, this is a problem we cannot discuss here, so we are not very optimistic about that anyway. Recommendation is not new either, ecosystem building great green wall along the northern and southern Sahel borders of Sahara. This idea, it comes from what is going on or almost accomplished in China, where there is the Great Green Wall, north-south, yeah, for 3,500 kilometers, as I read, and which is finished or almost finished, and which is at a width of something of 10 to 15 kilometers. So that idea has been taken for Africa, for the northern part of the Sahara, and part has been realized apparently in the Senegal. But now, and the others, yeah. So there's a question of money, but there's also a question of policy, of politics and policy. So there will be a part of solution, at least to have an effect on the dust, the migration of the material of deserts. Recommendation, creation of rain. So this is a company which I knew for a number of years, and is doing today an experiment in Jordan. And it is putting in with electrons, ions in the atmosphere, in a selected place, which is then at the origin of creating dark clouds and a result of rain. And there's an experiment going on now for 1 year on the initiative of the King of Jordan. So as an answer to their immigration is enormous. And apparently the place they have chosen, it is successful. So I bring this in, that along that northern border, or eventually the southern border with the Sahel, that could be technologies that can be helpful locally. Yeah? It will not rain in North Africa. So locally to have a better solution than that. It's like the idea as well, and so that's the reason I mentioned that. IPCC, and forget to IPCC, I just mentioned 2 elements. Is the IPCC evolved, and it has made a number of models. I read somewhere 40 models or something. Now, there are two essentials. The SCAS is the special report on environment. No, it's not environmental scenarios. Well, anyway, stress. Emission scenarios, sorry. And it's storyline. It describes another serious scenarios of what the temperature jump could be. Yeah? This is years ago, 20 years ago, something like that. And now the latest ones are the RCPs, and here is a representative concentration pathways. What's the difference between? The first one is the emissions. What do countries emit? And probably it's not very trustful. Yeah, so whatever. Yeah. So they change to another, or they completed with the concentrations of greenhouse gases, which is much more realistic. So you measure them, you can measure them, and hopefully they're correct. Yeah. So the one which is mostly cited, yeah, here I have a table. So when we look at the last one here, the 8.5 is mentioned in literature frequently. So then the mean temperature likely range is 2 degrees up to 2.6 for that period of time. If we go further, then we get to 3.7. Anyway, so I want to say to that here, that is in Paris, where Trump withdrew. Okay, this problem. In Paris, there seemed to be a very optimistic agreement by politicians. It is a diplomatic success, no discussion about it. But so somehow they thought, the group thought of 1.5 increase of average temperature planetary. I think this is too optimistic. That, in fact, there is no decrease, or on the contrary, there is no decrease of consumption of greenhouse gases. So I like much more a direction, but this is speculative, somewhere here in that region. Okay, so that's IPCC is interesting to guide. And so some optimists will guide left or right, yeah. The others, and I'm rather pessimistic, that for political reasons, it is mostly concluded what the most saleable scenario. Okay. Good. I come here to the other. Okay. So I'm almost through. Then we have questions and answers. So breathing, I'm on the right place, I think. I do give the honor to Norman Borlaug in my book. Photosynthesis, I just discovered there are also developments probably here. I don't know. So from C3 to C4, the case of rice, here in the Philippines, or elsewhere here. GMO, I speak of GMO, it just had the following condition. Namely, endogenous GMO within the existing plants. This comes from an article from MIT from a few years ago, and mentioned in my book. So there's yield decrease, pest resistance, dwarf wheat, which has been realized here. So endogenous, against to the exogenous. And the exogenous, I can give the example of Monsanto, yeah, where the wheat has been GMO modified to be resistant, etc., etc. So I mentioned also the case of fertilization, that phosphor, so I don't know that someone you know more about, that phosphor can become a problem. Then there is phosphor, but where? Yeah, so of course Morocco, but okay. So and phosphor is absolutely necessary for vegetation. Quoting Norman Borlaug, I think I have not to do that here. Yeah, so and composed social systems, adequate food. So one of our conclusions is that indeed, if we do not find solution for food availability, it will be a source of great problems. We have them seen already. It is said that in Rwanda, that's now 15 or 20 years ago, the conflict started there on food availability. It is also said, but I don't know if it's correct, that also in Syria today, the original one started with a food problem, at least for certain populations. There may be other ones, I don't know. So if you have some, I will be pleased to learn them. I take it for an argumentation. And to one suggestion to say that we have the FAO, and they do marvelous work, no problem. But to answer and to manage on a long time over generations, 3, 4 generations, each generation 25 years, yeah, about our food situation, food production. And I close here. I do not speak in my book about economics. I do not speak about trading at all. So I'm interested, I'm an engineer background, so this is my limitation. So to the production. We have to produce it before we can sell it. And so this is essential. But anyway, good. So please open for questions. I still have a project to announce, perhaps. But first, questions.
Be careful.
Oh, pardon. Yes, please.
So, any question? Comment?
I can just speak loud.
And then
Very fascinating talk. Is it working? Okay. I think it was slide 11th or 12th where you showed the Sahara expanse kind of like going up starting in the 1920s until about 1950, and then it kind of like stabilized. So could one argue that greenhouse effects on Sahara, they have stabilized and don't need to be worried about anymore? I think it was slide 11 or 12. If you go back, you will see it.
About demography.
The Sahara expanse, the graph that you presented, it was pretty dramatic that for the first 30 years or so, from 1920 to 1950, yeah. It went up almost dramatically, and then it seemed to have stabilized after that. I think it's 11, slide 11.
Wait a minute.
That one, yes.
This one here.
Yeah, so, see, starting about 1950s, it seems like it's pretty much stable. So,
yes.
One could argue that why worry so much about climate change?
Well, so I'm not a climatologist, but what I learned in the article, which is 25 pages, by the way. So the climate there, of the Sahara, is determined by 3 factors. The first is the Atlantic multi-decadal, multi-decadal oscillations, first, as well as the Pacific decadal oscillations. So they have their influence. That's what I can say. The third one is the Adelaide movement, but maybe they are specialists here. So Adelaide Center at the equator, which is describing the upgoing air by warmth, by heat temperature, and moving down north of it, and probably south as well, and defining very strongly or influencing the behavior of the Sahel and the north. So it is extremely, so the authors from the University of Delaware, they tried to filter with statistical methods and tools to clarify what was the impact from one another. Yeah? So I can only follow that. I joined their conclusion, which is maybe too optimistic. What I said is that it comes out of their calculations, even with the fluctuations. And so the average latitude of northern edge of the Sahara. So, okay, good, that's a result, yeah? What is the red one is the average latitude of NIH, so weather jet, linear feet, etc. So, okay, I accept their way of method. It is described very long, and it is, I think, very sophisticated. So I joined the linear approach. As a way of having something in hand to work with. Yeah, and I open the door. If the linear would be not correct, but would be rather non-linear. And when it would be non-linear, or become non-linear, then it will be increase the pace, the speed of the modification of the change. It will not be, I expect it will not go slower. So it will be rise, increase, which will be worse. Yeah? So the description of that's the summer, that's the winter here. The summer is different, is impact, but also the linear relationship is there, and there are fluctuations indeed. So, okay, I accept them. We put it that way. Yeah? I give you the reference of the article, so please. But as far as I know, it's the only one which has tried to quantify what is going on in that part of Africa, but also at other deserts. What they claim that, in fact, all the deserts have somehow a behavior similar to that. The Sahara is the biggest one. It's enormous, eh? Yeah? It's 5,000 kilometers long and 2 or 3 large. So this is immense. It's a whole region. Okay, so there's the first, as far as I know, but please, the first quantitative trial to describe the behavior. If we would have something similar for agriculture, it would be excellent. Yes, please. So maybe I disappoint you, but yes, please.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes, okay. Louder? Is it fine? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, sorry. Okay. So regarding the recommendations you had on your last slides, the one on the recommendations, I was interested in your point of view in the green wall you were proposing. Can you go back to the last slide where you suggest the green wall? So what are your regards on this green wall? Because I've seen projects in Kenya, for example, I know it's not part of the Sahara, where agroforestry has been one of a key point where women are even included because of the migration problems they also face there. So I'm guessing, is idealistically speaking, but in the green wall you propose, would you consider agroforestry techniques or projects regarding support or NGOs participating with green walls? I'm not very into this topic, it's not my field, but I'm guessing into the green walls, what techniques would you suggest or which topics would you be proposing as well?
Well, can you give some clarification? So I don't understand your questions. Yeah.
Green wall north of the Sahara. I mean, how to go about it? What are your views on? That's what she's asking. The green wall concept north of Sahara. What kind of trees or foliage, and how to go about? How far does it have to be from the northern border?
Wait a minute. Well, so what I understood of the green wall, yeah, is that at the northern part, and here of Sahara, when you speak about Kenya, I would think that it's rather Saharan, but it can, depending on the size, is another problem. Yeah? But anyway, now, and what I read now, or my knowledge, is limited to that northern part here. And so there is something has been done there. Good. That the first reason is, and I think it's inspired by China, that at least for the North-South, that China wanted to decrease the dust movement to the east. And the main city is Beijing, to ask that. They feared that the dust would enter the city years ago. Yeah. So that the decision, as far as I know, yeah, okay. So, but that's the inspiration, I think, and I can join that inspiration. Yeah. So that here, so the desert will move up to there, not until the Mediterranean. I do agree that. So that part, which I kept out in another climate zone in the analysis, yeah, that in fact here there will be Morocco, Algeria, Tunis, and maybe, well, Egypt is somewhat special anyway. Egypt, insofar from the agriculture part, is completely artificial. You know, okay, anyway. So that the creation of a green wall would, in the first place, be an address to limit the dust movement by the winds. So I think that intellectually everybody can sustain such an initiative, but the problem is that it should be done. And China is there, well, like it or not, in a privileged situation politically. Yeah. And so what? Huh? So can you give one anecdote which I lived myself? I was invited in Morocco on a conference, and I briefed there on desertification. Good. And we went with the group to the edge of the Moroccan frontier to visit a water resource, an oasis. Yeah, sorry. Okay. And I knew from colleagues from Israel that at the Ben Gurion University, they have a department or faculty studying desert, yeah? Negev desert sciences. I knew that. I've never been there. I hope to be there next year. Good. I told that an Algerian colleague, a lady, I said, shouldn't you need somewhere an institution to study actually the Sahara? But I didn't mention what I knew about Israel, that otherwise they wouldn't listen anymore. So I didn't tell that. And our answer was, and that is probably correct, yes, you're all right. Yeah, we have the building already, but we have no personnel. Yeah. So I hope that is right, but I quote, yeah. So there's the political difficulty to understand simple reality that everyone can see, actually. Yeah. And still, nothing is or not enough. Yeah. So what I read is that Senegal succeeded, yeah, but okay, that's one initiative on 3,500 kilometers. So all this, it doesn't contribute to be optimistic, put it that way. So is that about an answer to what your question? Yeah, okay. So anyone else? Otherwise, I have still a question to you. So I'm thinking of a new project to do with food production, but related to agrochemicals. You may know that in Europe, generally speaking, there is a high sensitivity or a growing sensitivity to the use of agrochemicals in the farming. And I give two examples which I read. In some glasses of beer, when found, when analyzed, glyphosate. Glyphosate? Okay. In another one, they found pesticides in mother milk. Yeah? So when you read that, okay. So the project is, but it has to be searched for the feasibility, is the use of blockchain to the whole chain from the production of agrochemicals up to the food we eat. There is a growing concern what is going on. And a country of France, the bioagriculture is a rising practice, I would say. Yeah? It's people get it. I don't know the other part. But anyway, that's one thing, it's a tendency. And I know that in one distribution channel, Carrefour, in some place they made an analysis, a chemical analysis of eggs. What are the components of pesticides, chemicals in eggs? So this is an example of the bottom-up search. I was thinking of a top-down. Let's say, which companies, where is glyphosate produced? It's no more patented, it's out of the patent. Yeah? So anyone can do it, more or less. So, but it's not only that, the neonicotinoids, etc., etc. So to launch that as a project. So if you can help me, please tell me. I think it's essential. It is existential. Yeah. So why? That is, my feeling, it is that the economy cannot dominate what we are eating. Full stop. Some like it, some don't like it. But so I want to launch that with the Club of Rome, and otherwise I will try with a few individuals. So it will be difficult, but anyway, and I see there the advantage is that first book of the Club of Rome, its first report, The Limits to Growth, there has been made at MIT. Yeah? There was first used the system dynamics. The system dynamics was a tool, a method that J. Forrester launched at MIT. He died a couple of years ago. And made that let us say the dynamics of some processes over time. It's over time. And that has been inspiring, yeah. And that book is based, is described, no, it's not based, described 13 scenarios. Yeah. So, okay, there is this discussion. This year we the festivity of 50 years. Yeah. But anyway, so I'm looking for a recent method which could be, if it's feasible, with blockchain. I don't know. So mathematicians have to say yes or no. But okay, that's right. Please, if you know someone who can join, that will please tell me. I will be grateful. Okay, that's okay. Bye.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Before I leave.